We don't really reach 700 million people in ASEAN, but we reach 3.8 billion people in a 6-hour flying radius. Where are you going to find a place like that?
Why is this country still flying under the radar? If you're not looking at this country in 2025, you're already behind.
Absolutely.
Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of Podcast with Tapio Management Advisory. I have my guest today, Bernard Schutte, of course. And in our last episode, we discussed about the geopolitical situation, Bernard, and the instability of what is happening in the world right now. And the situation was escalated. A lot of things has happened in the past 2 weeks. And this has shifted a lot of people's minds. A lot of things is going a bit chaotic now. And for businesses, we see a lot of them shifting interest to this region, particularly in Southeast Asia. And today we want to talk about Malaysia. So I want to ask Bernard the most vital question of the day. Why Malaysia? Why this country?
Well, if you have a look at the geopolitical situation in the whole world at the moment, as you mentioned, is very chaotic. And everyone at the moment is having a look at where do I go? People are looking for stability.
Yep.
And I really find Malaysia is one of the most stable countries in the world at the moment, with its neutral geopolitical situation, where it's friendly with everybody. They're friendly with, doesn't matter, China, USA, Europe, India, doesn't matter who. So because of the stability in not taking sides, Malaysia has become absolute hub for doing world business. Not only for doing world business, everybody knows Asia is the booming region. If Asia is the booming region, where do you go?
Yeah.
If you go to China, you might run into trouble being boycotted by the USA, or everybody has this big fear of China. So in my opinion, I think China is a very good country to go to, but when it comes to the geopolitical situation, unfortunately, it's not for China, but it's very good for Malaysia because of its neutrality.
In Tapio Management Advisory, we have worked with many international business. What are the things that they are always surprised about this country, having to work with them for many years now?
But for me, the most surprising thing coming here to Malaysia is you have a lot of German companies that have come here to Malaysia. They don't talk about what when they're in Europe or in Germany about the situation here. You have some massive companies. I'll give you an example of one of them, Infineon. Infineon, a semiconductor manufacturer from Bavaria, Germany, is now bigger in Malaysia than what it is in Germany. Not a little bit, by far. And there's a lot of these companies here. But they don't talk about that because they don't want their competitors to come here. They found this fantastic place where they can do business in a neutral area, where they have good labor sources and making semiconductors with very educated people, and perfect spot for them. And most people don't know about this. And this is the only example of one of them. There's many others as well in the medical field, like B. Brown. Same situation. They also here in Malaysia now bigger than what they are in Germany. I can go on and on and on with so many of these German companies that got bigger here. So that is a huge advantage that we have here in Malaysia that a lot of people don't even realize. Subscribe to this channel if you're interested in what we're talking about. And please do ask questions in the comment section.
Because you mentioned that a lot of companies now are bigger than the ones elsewhere, why is this country still flying under the radar?
That is a very good question, and I got a very good answer for that. Most people, it's a game of numbers. They look at population. They say, okay, Malaysia, they only got 34 million people. That's nothing. Look at China, say, 1.4 billion, we got to run to China.
Yeah.
Or they look at India, 1.4 billion, we got to run to India. But sometimes when you're in the forest, you don't see the trees because there's so many trees around you.
Yes.
And sometimes it's good to be a little bit away, because if you're in these big nations that everybody starts fearing, that becomes a problem for your business in the long term, because the big countries want to dominate.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's good to be a little bit away from the domination, but be able to supply with them and work with them and do things like this. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. You don't have to be in the middle of the pot where you maybe get cooked.
With that said, what would you say to companies that might still be hesitant to explore or to expand in this region?
Malaysia at the moment is the chair of ASEAN. What does that mean? That means it's in a similar situation as Brussels in Europe. Is this little so-called insignificant country in Belgium with a very small population, even smaller than Malaysia, but in control of Europe.
Yeah.
So you're having a similar situation here. You have Kuala Lumpur. We only have 6 million people in Greater Kuala Lumpur, but of the connections and the contacts, and because we the chair of ASEAN, everybody is focused on Malaysia. If you consider here in Malaysia, like I mentioned, there's only 34 million people, but we're in the center of the population of ASEAN of 700 million people. Europe is only 400 million people.
Yeah.
Almost half. We don't only reach 700 million people in ASEAN, but we reach 3.8 billion people in a 6-hour flying radius. Where are you going to find a place like that?
Geographically, of course, yes, Malaysia sits in a very unique position. Every trade route in Southeast Asia flows through this one country, and it will affect the business.
Yes, let me elaborate a little bit of what you said, because it's sort of correct and sort of not correct. The situation doesn't flow through Malaysia, but it goes through the Malaccan Straits. The Malaccan Straits is the most important trade route on the planet. Everything that goes from east to west goes through the Malaccan Straits. That has made Port Klang one of the 10th biggest ports on the planet. Now, of course, they're not as big as some of the main ports in Europe or in China, but if you think it's one of the 10th biggest, because that's just because of the people stopping and exchanging containers or doing business or whatever. So Malaysia plays a very significant role. If you think there's over 200 something countries and we have the 10th biggest port,
Yeah.
that says something. And they're expanding these ports because they're too small. And I want to add some few more things besides the opportunities of reaching 3.8 billion people. Malaysia has many trade agreements, free trade agreements, which is already outreaching even further. We are really in the perfect position where Malaysia has been able to make these deals, dealing with countries all over the world. And we're friendly with everyone. We're not threatened by any country. We don't have any geopolitical arguments with anybody. And this is a huge advantage. If you look at every country seems to be having issues with their neighbors. Malaysia has no issue with their neighbors.
Yeah.
Malaysia has no issues with anyone in the world. We are neutral like Switzerland. This is a huge advantage. That it doesn't matter what country you come from, Malaysia has a good relationship with you.
If you're not looking at this country in 2025, you're already behind.
Absolutely.